everybody. Welcome to the show. Tonight, I begin my coverage of year 4 of the Afterdark Horror Fest Film Festival. This is an independent horror film festival that I have been in love with for the longest time. I was lucky enough during my time at Blockbuster back in the day to actually be there for the DVD releases of the first couple of years of this festival. And so I have a healthy bout of nostalgia with them anytime I go back and see any of these titles showing up. Now, after those first 2 initial years, I largely fell off of it. And so last year when I took a look at year 3, those are mostly movies that I'd never seen or even heard of before. Here in year 4, we were taking a look at another collection of 8 films to die for that large and wide I have also never seen or heard of before. Now, the majority of this year's films can be found on free streaming platforms, including Plex, Tubi, Hoopla, Fubo. So if you're wanting to follow along with me as I work my way through each one of those there, you can check that out on one of those various services, including the first film that I'm going to start with tonight that is available on Plex. Tonight, I begin my coverage with the film from Clive Barker's Books of Blood, Dread. Now, as I work through each of these, y'all, like I've been doing my other reviews, I'm going to let you know my rating out of 5. And then once we're done with all 8 of these films, we're going to figure out which one ended up being best in show. If you're following along, definitely let me know in the comment section what you thought, what your rating is, and we'll see if we end up falling onto the same film by the time we're all done. But let's not waste any time here. If you haven't seen the trailer for Dread before, this focuses on an unstable college student with a tragic past who's able to convince a number of his classmates to help him with his thesis project, a study of people's biggest fears. But when the student decides to take these tests just a step too far, who's really the study of the project? And there it is, y'all. That is Dread. Now, our point of view for the majority of the film is college student Quaid, a young man who witnessed his parents' death by an axe murderer and was always fearful that this murderer would come back to take him out one day. Quaid developed an unhealthy obsession with people's fears, and his thesis project at first has himself, along with fellow psychology students Stephen and his friend Cheryl, interviewing a number of subjects, but being dissatisfied with the results. Now, as the 3 and others begin to eventually open up much more and share their real fears with Quaid, the cracks in Quaid's psyche begin to show as he starts to carry out these scenarios against the unwilling participants. Now, I said that Dread was an adaptation from Clive Barker's Books of Blood. And if you feel you haven't heard that exact title before, that's perfectly fine, but you likely are familiar with some of the stories that are included in Books of Blood. These have been adapted into numerous films, including Rawhide Rex, Lords of Illusion, one of my absolute favorites, The Midnight Meat Train, and a little one called Candyman. That's right, Candyman comes from Clive Barker's Books of Blood as well, too. So again, you do have some familiarity here with this collection of stories, even if you're not sure where they specifically came from. There's been countless adaptations over the years. It's essentially anthology horror, and y'all know me, slashers might be number 1, but anthology horror is very much number 2. I love the idea of having all these tales that may or may not take place in the same universe, but they have nothing at all to do with each other. Now, most of those adaptations have typically been based on supernatural or otherworldly based events, which makes Dread a very interesting case as it's very much grounded in reality. Or I guess as much reality as you could possibly get. You know, we're not having things rise from the grave. We're not having ghosts or monsters or anything like that out there. Nobody's summoning anything at all. This is very much about a disturbed individual and some of the insane lengths he will go through to get answers for his own troubles that he's having. Grounded or not, though, like the others, there is no lack of despair here. That is very much a trademark of the stories in the Books of Blood, is that all of these characters will be going through extreme despair by the time their story is finished up, and usually there is not a lot of happiness featured in any of these stories. And we're not talking about easy to overcome fears like arachnophobia or fears of heights. You know, I mentioned that Quaid was fearful about the axe murderer that killed his parents returning to kill him one day, but that's not the only one. You know, another character laments the fact that his brother died in a drunk driving accident, so now he's afraid to actually drive a car anywhere at all. Another character has a fear or a distaste of meat because they associate the smell of that meat with their sexual assault as a child. These are things that actually have legitimate trauma within them. And as much as you think that we would sympathize for a character like Quaid, given what he's gone through, he's no Dexter Morgan. His obsession has led him to hurt the wrong people, and it's seen very much as a means to get rid of, or at least understand, why he still has this irrational fear of somebody returning to kill him one day. Honestly, Quaid works really, really well as the protagonist and is a really great villain to watch. The film basically sets up Quaid to be Dexter Morgan, but Dexter Morgan in a Saw movie. He's basically running the show at this point, but he doesn't have the altruistic natures or intentions that Jigsaw has in those films. Like, don't get me wrong, John Kramer is a psychopath, but he still has a method to his madness. He wants these people to escape these traps because he wants their lives to be truly changed. He wants them to change themselves for the better. Quaid ultimately doesn't care. He just wants to see what people will push through to get over their fear so he can figure that out for himself. And I think that also ended up causing one of the issues that I did ultimately have with it, is that I feel like I wanted to see a little bit of empathy coming from Quaid. Just because with that tragic backstory of his, it would make sense that at bits and pieces, like small parts throughout the film, that we might see a little bit of that crack through, because he was put through this terrible ordeal. Maybe at a certain point of the stuff that he's doing, he might end up seeing that he's putting people through the same kind of torture at that point. And there's one instance to where the same character who has a fear of driving after his brother's drunk driving death tries to force that character to get over it by forcing him to drive a car himself. But again, even that seems more so like he's trying to exploit that person and torture them than actually try to be empathetic and help them get over this gigantic trauma that they've been holding within them. I don't need Quaid to have like a conflict of crisis or anything like that. He doesn't need to question his motives, but at the same time, considering how morbid the movie becomes, you kind of feel that the law of averages would show a less extreme approach, or maybe a different subject to where it was a bit more successful without Quaid having to dive in that deep. Now, Sean Evans, who plays Quaid, he's great in the role. He's got a likable presence. You really do want to see Quaid conquer his fears, just not at the expense of others, as we very much see that happening. Hans Steele and Laura Donnelly also feature as a couple of the thesis students who end up sharing their own fears. They leave a very memorable mark from their different interactions with Quaid. I think that Sean Evans shines best when he's opposite those two particular actresses, as their trauma that they're dealing with is much deeper, I feel, than the character with the car accident. And I feel that it really does give Quaid a chance to actually show off the fact that he just doesn't understand human emotion at all and doesn't really see people as being people. He sees them entirely just as a number, as results on paper that he can use to get him what he ultimately needs. Dread is actually fairly disgusting. I don't think it goes to the lengths of something like a Saw film, some of the episodes of Dexter with the kill room scenes that we've seen, Hostel, anything like that. But I do think, given the subject matter of the film itself and some of these tests, the way that they're played out, they are going to leave y'all with a little bit of trauma in there as well, too. This movie does not play fair. And I mentioned that the Books of Blood all have this shared sense of despair within them. They also all share the fact that none of them truly have any kind of happy ending with that either. It's a very entertaining car crash for sure. And I think this is the right way to get this festival started off. This definitely kept my interest, and it has me excited for the other films that we're going to be checking out over the next couple of weeks. I gave Dread a 3.5 out of 5. But what did you think? Did you go and check this one out for yourself over on Plex? Let me know in the comment section what you thought of that one here. And there it is, folks. That is our first film of the 2010 After Dark Horror Fest. Again, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to dive into the rest of these 8 films to die for. But if you want to stay on top of that, you got to make sure to get subscribed to my Linktree, which you can do at linktr.ee/T Scary Movie. If you get subscribed, that's going to be access to the YouTube page, the video versions of the show, your favorite podcasting platforms, the audio only versions of the show, to my Letterboxd page for written reviews and movie rankings through the year, to my TikTok page for movie reviews, movie premieres, and movie news, my Twitch page for horror gaming, and my Fangoria shop page where you can enjoy a 20% discount off anything in the Fangoria shop. Take advantage of that, y'all. We got a lot more great reviews coming out your way, including on June 4th. We are headed back to the crypt in another double feature that's heading on the summertime heat. We're looking at Carrion Death and Oils Well That Ends Well. And then, folks, it is time for us to dive into Better Luck Than Chuck, the first horror trivia show. I don't want y'all to miss that at all. Hit that subscribe button, but that's going to do it for us tonight, y'all. My name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.